teaches the 40-40 grind that many of us use today. That's such a versatile grind. Penny's going to be turning a few pieces for us. He's got a stack here under the table.
In case I blow them all up, yeah. I'll get lucky eventually.
Another Brit, and we appreciate having him here this evening. Currently out of Boulder, Colorado, and looking to start his own workshop there as well. So look out for him having a workshop where you can come in similar to what we have today, and teaching without having to travel. You know.
Yeah, travel bit, yeah.
Yeah, everybody wants.
I love the teaching, but you know,
loves the airplanes.
Everybody
so
sitting on airplanes.
No further, ado. Welcome, Stu.
Thanks, Dennis. Thanks for being here tonight. I appreciate that. I know it's your regular meeting, but I appreciate being here, and it's great to have a class. This is pretty unusual, where I did a 5-day class that isn't organised by what I would call a profit-making school, like Craft Supplies, Woodworkers Emporium, Mark Adams. They're all places where I'll do a 5-day class, but this is where we've got, they're all great lathes too, which is such a relief. You know, you get to somewhere and you end up with some mini lathes with worn out bearings, and so it's really good. So we got, and they asked me to supply the wood, so the wood is good practice wood. We give them all kinds of different densities of woods to practice. But what I'm going to do tonight, think of tonight a little bit more, there'll be some information there of course, but think of it more as showman. If you want to learn to turn at some stage, you really need to do a hands-on with a really good, competent turner. And there are lots of great turners out there. So hands-on is what you learn. Think of tonight as a little bit more inspirational. So I'm going to make a bowl. Bowls aren't super complex. We are dealing with a little bit of a more complex wood orientation, because what we have with a bowl is this is how most of us think about wood, is, you know, blocks of spindle blanks, and then what we've done is we've orientated it a certain way that makes bowls both easier and harder to turn, depending on whether you're talking about a side grain or end grain bowl. But this is a side grain bowl, which is what we turn 90% of the time. The cherry bowl over there, side grain, the natural edge ones, they're side grain. End grain bowls are a different dynamic, and I don't normally recommend making end grain bowls. End grain bowls became quite famous through a few people in Hawaii who started making bowls to sell, but actually didn't know how to turn. So they didn't know you weren't supposed to turn the bowl out of end grain. All right. So keep in mind, end grain bowls are a different dynamic. But side grain bowls are the best way to turn. So what we've done, we've taken our spindle block and we've turned it sideways. So we still want to cut into the side grain, but we are dealt with and we have to cope with the end grain. And when the end grain's spinning, there's a proportion of that end grain here that's side grain. So if we look at this block that's hexed, if we look at it right now, this is end grain, this is end grain, this is end grain. Tiny bit of side grain, end grain, end grain, end grain, tiny bit of side grain. So you end up with a problem you've got to solve later, which we'll show you how to get around that, which is when you press on the bevel, or rub that bevel as you're told to do, it will destroy the cuts. So I know you're told to rub that bevel, but it's wrong. You don't rub the bevel, you float it. There's a big difference between rubbing and floating. So floating is the piece of wood you're cutting doesn't know the bevel is there, and rubbing means you're pressing on the fibers, and then it reacts back. So who's tried to push cut around the outside of a bowl and it's bounced? Only one in the room? You've all tried it. Okay. You can admit to it. Okay, the problem is it's because you're riding the bevel. Now I'll show you how to solve that problem tonight. And then if you put a little practice in, you can learn to do this cut. So I'm going to pass around a few gouges. Let's see which one's going to pass around. I'll pass around 3. These are not free gifts. Alright? I do need a bag. So this one goes this way, put this one in the middle. So this is a 40-40 grind. It doesn't look anything spectacular. I'm starting at the back. So weave them back and forth, and then eventually I need to take them home. Well, actually, I need them for the class tomorrow. That's what I need. Okay, so the 40-40 grind, what is it? Simply, it's an evolution. When I was turning for my dad, I was hired by my dad, so I apprenticed under my dad for a number of years. But my dad apprenticed in the old traditional apprenticeship system, which meant when you started at 16 and you worked till you were 22, there was no arguing with the Grandmaster Turner. So whatever he said, that's what you did, and you could not change a damn thing. Because they started with 20, by end of year 1, they had 10, and by end of year 2, they had 5. And that 5 carried on. Which meant, if you back-chatted or had some better suggestion, this guy has been turning 50 years, you were first to get cut. So nobody ever back-chatted. And so everything I used to deal with when I worked for my dad was, no, it's not done like that, lad. It's always been done this way, and that's it. But why? well, it's always been done that way. And I'm like, but why? That doesn't mean it's right. So tradition doesn't always mean it's right. So my dad had some things that were brought through from his traditional English style turning that I just disagree with. They're just too inefficient. And so what I want to be able to do when I turn is I want to take a very large cut directly to sandable finish. Which means if I have tone grain, I can't do that. And so some of the stuff my dad did meant you would cut the rough it one way and finish it another. And modern bowl turning, if you use the Irish grind, is the same. Which is you rough it with one gouge and then you fix it afterwards. So I decided to eliminate that, and to do that I developed the 40-40 grind, which allows me to remove up to say 3/4 of an inch in one pass directly to a finished surface ready to sand with 180 grit. That's what we want to do, and that's why the guys are practicing it. The downside to this technique is it is the most difficult to learn. The reason it's the most difficult to learn, it's the most sensitive to how you control the tool. When you control the tool correctly, it gives you this ultimate finish. The problem is when you use it incorrectly, it actually reacts back and then you get not such a good finish. So we'll talk about it and I'll demonstrate it and they'll say, oh, it looks pretty easy. Which when you do it right, it is. So the main thing is about the shape of the gouge. The wings of the gouge must be straight. So even though that doesn't need to be curved there, it's just my three-dimensional drawing. That's what we're looking for here. And it doesn't look anything special. You say, oh, I've seen this shape before. But it's really important that the bevel angle, that's the cutting angle, which is at the very tip, is 40 degrees. It's a magical angle for all woods. So when you go up or below on that, it starts to react differently to each of the different woods. 40 is the angle that works for every species, even spalted, right up to super exotic. We tried that today, we were turning some punky wood, rotten punky, and you could still cut it clean with 40. And then you could take a piece of honey locust, which is pretty dense, and cut it with 40. And then you could take a piece of cocobolo and cut it with 40. Once you go above and beyond by several degrees, it starts to change. And we want the wing angle to also be 40 here. So when you add the two angles together, they equal 80 degrees, or most importantly, less than 90. The reason it must be less than 90 is we're not trying to get any finished surface off the wing. The wing is just a mulching machine. It's going to throw the chips in the air and clear it. The finish comes just from the tip of the gouge. So everybody else uses the wing to shape, and they use the wing to finish. I don't use it for that at all. This is just a snowplow blade. It's just chucking the chips to one side, the finish comes right off the tip. That's the magic, this tight radius. And all the gouges that we're using, we want to be using a gouge either with a V or an elliptical flute. It cannot be a U flute. So it must either be V, like a Thompson, that's a V gouge, or a European gouge, which is elliptical, very similar, elliptical. But they must be some form of V. It cannot be a U gouge, like that, where the sides are parallel. It will not clear the chip, and it can't be a spindle gouge, because a spindle gouge only has a very shallow depth of cut, which is that amount, the depth of the flute. This has a very deep depth of cut. So what we're doing is a double action cut. This is the most important thing. Now, it doesn't mean that I don't use the wing, because in a minute I'm going to use the wing just to peel the face of this, just to get it down flat. But when I go for my finish cuts, I'm going to use a tip. So this gouge is not good on side grain surfaces. Where it's exceptional is everywhere on the bowl where there's end grain. So 90% of this bowl is end grain, about 10% of the surface is side grain. Where it's side grain, I use a different gouge. So it's exceptional across end grain, and most of our cuts in wood turning have end grain somewhere in them. The only time you've got side grain is on the perfectly flat surface, and on the perfectly flat surface, as soon as you angle it, it becomes end grain, and that's when the 40-40 gouge works a little better. So here's we got some side grain. I want to level it real quick, just to get out of the way. This is going to be my jam chuck, not my bowl. So now I'm between senders. When you're between senders, this is not particularly safe. It's not extremely dangerous, so I'm going to keep the speed below 1,000 RPM. So if I was to pull that tailstock out of the way, this bowl blank would just hit the floor. If I take it above 1,000 RPM and it came off the lathe, then it will start traveling. So right now I'm running at 900 RPM. So if I just pull this tailstock out of the way, it'll just hit the floor. If I take it up to 1,200, it'll go airborne. I want to take it up to 1,200 to turn it, but I've got to get it ready and on a chuck. Once it's on the chuck, then it's safe. Right now, it's just between senders. It is not 100% safe. So I'm not standing in a full firing line right now. I'm just inside, and I'm just going to feel the surface here. All I'm doing, this is not going to give you a good finish. Like I said, this gouge is not good across side grain, but where it is good is the next cut. So I leveled it, and then I'm going to make a groove. So I'm turning in and in. So I got rid of my waste. So what I've created is a groove, and then I'm going to use a little scraper here, and I'm just going to dovetail it. So I'm going to grip on a recess. Now this little guy just needs to be sharpened. Give me a second. This is one I didn't sharpen before, so I got it wrapped up. This is just a scraper. We're all familiar with scrapers. Not there yet. So when I say it's a scraper, it's just angled at 10 degrees from square, and it lets me just put in a little dovetail. I'm just going to use fancy jaws into there. A little grip on that. So that one's prepped, and you see it doesn't give a good finish on this surface. It does tear out, especially on crazy grain. This is not the ideal gouge. I'm going to show you what gouge is good for there, but I didn't want to pick up two tools. Not if I don't have to. Then I'm going to prep this one, which I believe is ash. This would have already cracked in Colorado. In Colorado, ash grows everywhere, but it does not like our environment once you take the bark off. So what happens with ash is it cracks really quick. So in Colorado, we have a lot drier humidity. Of course, you guys are quite humid here. Let's get the back of the foot. So, you guys have got the same problem here. You've got the borer beetle.
Just about dead now.
Yeah, we've got the same problem in Colorado. I guess it took a little bit longer to get there. But they're taking down all the trees in Boulder, Colorado, where I live. They're all going to come down in the next few months. 2,000 of them. It's a lot for a little town. The 200 are going to go to my workshop. That's what happens when you've got friends in the logging industry. But so my main guy that cuts down all my trees, he's really interested in wood turning. And so they drop the logs off at the ranch where I live. Well, not where I live, where my workshop is. And so they'll actually bring them to the ranch, and they'll actually drop them off on their back of their big truck. So I don't have to do anything. I just got to turn up, and the log's already there. And Tom, whose ranch it is, and who's a collector of wood turnings, I says to him, whatever you do, don't show the log guy any of the wood turnings. So I said, we'll have a problem. And so he's just one time, he just couldn't help himself, so he showed him the collection of wood turnings. And I'm like, oh man, we're not going to get you more logs soon. Because now he's so excited about wood turning, and then he's going to keep all the best logs. So. Okay, same problem here. So speed down. Not too fast, so build it up. Check we're not in balance. So open it up again, about 800-900 revs. There's 900. Just level the face. It's just a peeling cut. Nothing fancy here at all. I keep my left leg forward, so I move my whole body to form the cut, not my arms. And what I want to do, this is just check, because do you have the safety pin on your Big Mark chuck? I'll find out. Okay, because I forgot. I made the gap as if I removed the safety pin. So Big Mark chucks have a safety pin, and I got a feeling this might have the safety pin on it. Normally it has a wrench. What happened to your wrench, do you know?
Left it at home.
Oh, left it at home. Let's just see how well we got it. And find out there's a safety pin here. Hell no, you got no safety pin. Perfect. Alright, the safety pin blocks it off really early. So with this you can go really wide, so I get a nice big footprint, even though it's not the ideal size jaws. For some reason or other, this manufacturer makes a great chuck, which is the one-way chuck. And the Big Mark chuck, the manufacturer forgot to make 3-inch jaws. So you only make 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, but they forgot about 3-inch jaws. And finally, Big Mark, or not Big Mark, but Woodworkers Emporium made Big Mark make 3-inch jaws. So now you can buy the 3-inch jaws that have been missing for the last 15 years. So they just arrived, and they're almost already sold out. So, Michael, if you want to get some, better give them a call, because they will be gone. So I just want to check to see how wide it can go. So the wider I can go, the bigger the footprint here. So here I'm just making space for my little scraper. Okay, and then we'll just scrape a little groove, and then I can make a simple hole. So what I thought about the safety pin is the safety pin prevents somebody from winding the jaws all the way out. But I want them to go out pretty far, so I get this nice wide footprint, and that gives more stability when I hollow out and do the outside of the bowl. Okay. So I used to work for my dad. Anybody else here ever worked for the parents? A few of you? How was it? Tough, yeah. People don't realize working for your parents, man, is not the same as working for somebody else. My dad was really hard on me. He said it was good for me, but I was like, I'm not so sure it's that good for me.
Harder on you than he is on the other employees.
He was, yeah, he was. He was much harder on me, and you guys, if you work for your parents, so it's the same thing. But when I worked for my dad, it was actually child slave labor. I think it's illegal now. So what would happen is my dad would pay me on a Friday, my little bundle of cash. I'd get home, my mum said, that's exactly the amount we want for board and keep. So I'm back at zero, and I'm like, isn't that what slavery is? Where you work all the time and you got nothing left, zero. And that's what I felt like. I was like, so I said to my dad, I said, how do you pay me? He says, I pay you by the piece. I says, I'm going to get faster. He says, how is that? I said, I'm going to change the way we turn. And he says, what? He says, it's been this way for centuries, you can't change it. I said, I'm going to stop using that damn skew for a kickoff. So we don't have the right wrench, so I've got to just work out this, because I've never used it this way. It's a little bit more complex than I've done before. But it will work good. All right, here we go. Because it's limited space. Aha. How about, I got a better idea. That'd be sensible. I'm going to take it off. What that's going to let me do is I can fit it easier. I don't have a lot of access around it. There we go. Normally you do this with a regular Allen key, but we're short of the regular Allen key, so I'm using it this way. There we go. Then I can go the other way. Should get it really tight. So, this gives you tighter than you might ever need. So we know it's not coming off. Anyway, working for my dad, I said to my dad, I need to turn a little faster, and so I started getting like a little bit obsessed with how do I get faster? How do I make balustrades faster? How do I turn a bowl faster? And how do I hollow an end grain faster? So that's what I started working on, and that's why I came up with the development of using a bowl gouge for spindle turning, which horrified my dad. I'm using a bowl gouge and spindle turning. My dad said, that's sacrilege. And he says, everything should be done with a skew. That's what real men do. I like that. You didn't pay me enough to be a real man. Because I need you to turn faster, so I can have enough money after I paid Mom for board and keep to go and do some fun stuff. So, anyway, we're all familiar with excuse me, taking the bowl down to the round. And this is where a lot of people are. So what did I see on YouTube the other day? I was on Facebook, somebody posted about a guy turned this big red oak and he says, it beat the crap out of me. And I'm like, he needs a class. It's not supposed to beat you up. You're supposed to be able to wood turn in your 90s, easy. My oldest student was 96. So, and then I've taught kids down to about 8. I don't usually teach children under the age of 8, and even 8, I much prefer to start them at 10. Just safety-wise, they don't get everything about loose clothing and things like that. So, and you can get them doing spinning tops and that. But if you're bowl turning, they want to be 10 plus. I started turning at 10, so I had a little bit of familiarity of what was dangerous, what wasn't, and what have you. Now, I know I'm not wearing a face shield, but here's something that's important. I put it on a chuck. I've got the correct speed. I locked in the tailstock. It can't come off the lathe. Even if I took it to max speed on this pulley, the max speed is 12,500 RPM. I know this bowl doesn't have any cracks in it or any flaws, so there's nothing going to hit me in the face. Now at home, when I wear a face shield, yeah, I'm going to wear a face shield because I'm not talking to somebody. So at home, you definitely want to wear a face shield. But I saw somebody get a catch on Facebook the other day, and the guy took a scraping tool. This is a scraping tool, and he pointed it uphill into the side of the bowl. And that is end grain. And I don't care what you have it point up into end grain, it is a catch. So it's coming off the lathe, he's only between centers, he's standing right in front of it, and he got the speed way too fast. So it hit him in the face. So I know I get into trouble at the AW because I demonstrate with safety glasses all the time, but I said, if I'm wearing a face shield, I can't talk. Unless I got a mic, and we don't always have mics. So I said, I'm okay with it because I'm making sure everything is safe. I personally cut this piece of wood, so I know it's a sound piece of wood. And so I brought up the tailstock as an extra safety factor. What would be dangerous is taking this off, taking it to maximum speed, and standing in front of it. Now I've got a square block of wood or octagonal piece of wood. Now I'm not safe. So this tailstock is a magical safeguard. It's much safer than a faceplate with screws. They can still give up. But this can't give up. There's no way. And now, if I turn this up to maximum speed, it would just make the lathe run around the room. So right now, we set the speed. Now I'm going to take this up to see what it'll be where it's comfortable. So it's going to sound fast because the motor's running at maximum speed if I'm on the small pulley. So we're running at its maximum speed of 1200 RPM. So I can't run it any faster. And I'm going to take this little bevel, that's this little guy here, and I've shortened it so it's just short, and I'm going to float it over the surface. I'm not going to ride the bevel. So floating it means it's going to just glide over the surface. I'm going to stand with my feet parallel, and I'm just going to float through, and it won't be here. It's going to be really nice, and it gets down around in one or two steps. So what I'm not doing is I'm not pushing into this surface here. That's the surface I cut. The gouge doesn't even know it was on there. I'm pushing into the waste material. So if I push into the surface, it will be here. So I'm floating it on that surface. So I can rapidly get it down to the ground. And then slow down again.
So if you weren't turning so fast, it'd probably beat me up, right? If you were like at 600?
No, I would have to just control the tool better. So I could turn it slower. So you know, the problem with wood turning is very unusual characteristics. When you turn too slow, the gouge becomes more grabby. The higher the speed, the cleaner it cuts. Now, 1200 means the outside speed of this is about 40 miles an hour. Maybe it's to 42 to 43 miles. That's the max I'm ever going to run at. I never run above 45 on the outside speed. So the reason I want to turn at that kind of speed is I cut through all this grain. I have no torn fibers, and it cut really easy. I got a proficient cut. Now, if this ball blank was bigger, then I would drop the speed to 900, 600, maybe it's on a 24-inch. But on there, I just don't want the outside periphery to be above, when I say 40, 40 is 40 to maybe 45 absolute max. And I would say, if we were to measure this on the calculator now, I'd say that's probably running about 40 miles an hour, which means I'm cutting a mile of chips every 90 seconds. 1 mile of permanent cutting. And it sounds faster than it is. This is not running super fast. It's just you're listening to the motor. If I took it to the other pulley, it would sound quite quiet. But what I'm going to do then is lose half my pushing power, because I'm going to take away the torque of the motor. So, now that I'm level, there's no imbalance. It's on big jaw, big grooves. It's in a good 3/8. What I'm going to do here is level the face. So back to that peel cut. This gouge is not particularly good at the peel cut, but none of this flat surface is going to be left. So I'm just going to peel it here. Peeling, this is peel. You can peel side grain, you cannot peel end grain. So the side grain is here. I'm not trying to peel that. I was peeling side grain when I went across there. Just leveling that up. Now what I'm going to do is cut the corner off. So I've done straight, straight, straight. Cut the corner off. One more cut. And then I can make this into a bowl in about 4 cuts, and then it's the outside of the bowl is done. So I do a series of straight, 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 then I curve. Now what I'm going to do here is, because I'm using push cut, what I need to do is remove the tailstock. I'll take this guy off, and usually there's an excess hole there. That goes in there so we don't lose it. So, most bolt turning is done with the tailstock there. If you've got the tailstock there, that means you have to pull the gouge round, which means I've got my handle low and I'm pulling round. If I'm pulling round, I get a really lousy finish. So I'll show you how I'm only roughs the bowl down. You would rough it down like this, no bevel support, and it's rapid until you rapid like this. And he does it left-handed. So that was a left-handed cut, and I'm holding the handle with my left and using both hands, and I'm getting a really poor finish here. So torn out and damaged, and I'm getting ridges. And then spend time fixing it. And I'm not going to do that. All I'm going to do is go directly to finish cuts. But what I'm doing is a little bit trickier to control the tool because it's sensitive to pressure. So if I do it right, there's no problem. It's just forming a really nice shape on here. That's one cut. Two cuts, sharpen the gouge, it's done. That's it. So although I can't shape it as fast as mahogany, I can cut it with 0 tone grain. That's the difference. I have no tone grain whatsoever here, and I wasn't even being nice to the wood and I didn't sharpen the tool, and I'd used it for several minutes, which means I'd done several miles of cutting on the tip. So for the last cut here, I'll sharpen it. But I guess I should screw it up first, shouldn't I? Because I'm going to show you what you're going to do the very first time you try this cut. Because unfortunately, everybody, there's no exceptions. I don't care who you are, everybody messes this cut up the first time. It's not humanly possible to get it right. And because you're going to do this, you're going to, no matter how you grip it, you're going to put something in front of the tool. Whether it's your thumb, your palm, whatever it is, put something in front, and then it goes badly wrong. And that's called rubbing the bevel. So I'm going to rub the bevel. What I'm going to do is instead of keep my fingers here that are cancelling my thumb, these fingers cancel the thumb and just keep it downward pressure, I'm going to get lazy with my fingers and take them away. Nothing happens initially. You can hear the thumping? Here it comes. I'm going to get out of control. Now I'm not control. So what I can do is put my fingers back there. Back to stable. Take my thumb away. Take a moment. Out of control. So how it works is, I need to add downward pressure with my thumb and downward pressure with my fingers, both together, cancelling each other out, so I could actually let go of the gouge and hold it, and I just lay it down. It is so hard to do this because everybody, every human I've ever taught, which is at least 5,000 people, as soon as you put your hand on your tool rest, you go, I'll just let go. They let go of the fingers, or they relax them, or they leave them underneath. They must cancel what the thumb is doing. Although the thumb is pushing down, it's a round bar, it's still pushing it in. By pushing it in, you get this reaction on, you can see the bounce wave. It's painted in. On the right hand, there it is. You see it's a wave, it's always a wave. There it is, see it's a wave. It's a bounce wave. So what ended up happening is when I took my fingers away from behind, my thumb was pushing in, you can see where the side grain is, it compressed slightly, and then the end grain resisted and pushed it back, which made a rocking motion, and then it cut a little channel. And then when the bevel engages that little channel, it drops back in, and accentuates the rocking motion, that's why it grows bigger and bigger and bigger. So, now, could you grip it on top? Yep, you could grip it on top, but look what I just did with the chisel. I can't move it. And if I grip it on top, I'll use my palm instead. So when you grip it on top, to make it stable, you have to have your hand back here. So you can grip it like this. So this sounds a lot faster than it is. It's only running at 1200. So if I have my hand here, I can make it work, but that's really uncomfortable to hold that there the whole way around. Because I'm keeping the pressure, downward pressure, only. Chips. So you can still do it, but it's just as easy just to hold it down, and then you've got to practice. So you see I'm not getting the bounce here, get a nice clean cut, but I guess I should finish this one and we'll demonstrate more on the jam chuck in a minute about destroying this cut. I don't want to make this too small. Okay, to sharpen, I use the angle gauge. The angle gauge is just a reference. These little guys that I bring with me to sell, the reason I bring them is because people say, oh, I'd like one because all the angles I use in wood turning are primarily on number 1, and number 2 I just sell it cheap because it's got just a couple of angles we use in wood turning. There are 8 angles on this, all the main ones we use in wood turning, mainly for bowl gouges plus the skew on here. And what I did I took the platform and I had the wheel just touch the bottom one, and it sits in situ, it sets the angle. Then I placed it flat, and that let me set the angle for the 40 degrees to the left and 40 degrees to the right. And then what I do when I'm sharpening, normally I'm sharpening on this side, so if I've got a handle, I want to sharpen with my gouges on my left wheel, my chisels on the right wheel. My chisels work with the handle down here, so I can stand wherever I like. But on the gouge, I don't want to sharpen too much on this side because I have to reach over the wheel because I'm right-handed. So if I do it on this wheel, it's easier. A lot of truth. And then I go follow the wing, drop down, land to the center, and same the other way. You see the wheel's really bouncy. So that wheel needs a bit of dressing. So I've got one set up here that's CBN, so I'm going to touch it on the CBN. So this one's not set up, so give me a second. As in ideally, because I would rather have the CBN on this side, but you can see that's just beating the hell out of the gouge. So the CBN's a lot smoother, and you can do a different, way better. So it's the same grind, just on CBN. It's just, think about it, it's a $150 gouge, and I'm sharpening it on a $5 wheel. It's a bit like having a Ferrari and putting retreads on it. So you're not going to do it. So, you know, if you've got these expensive gouges, because there is no such thing as a cheap gouge, right? They're all at least 50 to 150 bucks. So, you know, this CBN wheel, you can buy it now for like about 100 bucks. It's well worth the investment because it's going to save you the cost of your the CBN wheel will save you the cost of the gouge in at least 1 year. It's, when you sharpen a CBN, you take off pennies at a time. When you sharpen on this guy, you're taking off 15, 20 cents worth of gouge. You're wearing it out really fast. And this is not designed for the exotic steels we use. You know, we use M42, M2, 10V. So what this wheel is doing is actually chipping the surface of the carbide, just snapping the carbides out of the steel because we use a lot of carbides in our steels. This is CBN, and it actually just cuts through the carbides, a bit like diamond through glass. And this is like a spinning brick cutting glass. So you pick your options. So it is way better to have a CBN. On this one, I would personally have a CBN on this side, just so I can sharpen this way. Simple as that. Now, let's go for a finish cut. A couple of things about this technique. The flatter the handle, but not completely flat, and the more I close the flute, the better the surface I can get on here. By the way, it's not affected by volume. So this actually is quite forgiving. I'll do it on the maple, which is unforgiving. It's a bit funky. So I'll take a really big cut on that one. So the speed is 1240 here, so it's not super fast here. There's the end of my cut. There's the beginning. So what I did was, there's the end. I step up to the tool. I clear my feet. Now I can lean and complete the cut in one pass. So I'm not doing it in a series of little cuts. And I want to make it slightly enclosed. I'm going to move around a little bit more. Now, the secret to this is slow tool feed. The slower I feed the tool, the better the finish. So my fingers are cancelling out my thumb, and I'm going to gradually transfer my weight over to my left leg. You'll see that the final cut at the very top will get very large. It will not affect the finish. Here I'm getting about 5/8 in one pass. Okay, not quite where I want to be, but when I jam chuck it, I'll take that out. So right there, when I run into a little bit of a bump, I got a little blip just from the lathe, just slowing down a tiny bit. But I don't have tone grin, so I'm going to take that out. Yeah, I'll take it out now. It's bugging me. Right, I'm going to take it out now. So I'm just going to come in again. So, don't press on the surface, just gliding in. Plus I don't like the top shape. I came around a bit more than I wanted to. And then I'm going to use the same gouge, put a tenon on, but this is a bit of a narrow base for this tool. Remember, this tool doesn't give a good finish on side grain, but this is not the finished cut on the bowl. But it likes making a tenon. Remember, it's 80 degrees included angle, so I can cut right in and make a tenon. And then I'll jam chuck it afterwards. So that's what the other block is. But before I do anything, I'll just pass this round straight off the tool. So loosen this the other way. Right, I'm just thinking out loud. So I'll pass it around. You can see where I joined the two cuts. There's always going to be a little bit of a blip, but it's so little I can sand it out. You feel there's no torn grain, and I got the cut basically in one, and I went back and took the little blip out. So, and that's ash. Now I know it's wet, but it'll give you the same result on dry wood. It doesn't care if it's wet or dry. Yeah. This guy, I'm going to show you the cuts again, because this is a bit more vulnerable. This is a little bit punky in places, but it'll still cut super clean. So this is a Vic Mark chuck. I like the one-way chuck, but the Vic Mark's my favorite on the market because the one-way doesn't come with dovetail jaws as standard. It comes with serrated jaws, and I prefer dovetail. Dovetail jaws have been around for 500 years, and they're pretty good. So they were invented by ornamental turners, those guys that used to turn ivory on ornamental lathes, and they invented the dovetail jaws in the 1500s. For holding ivory, but also it's really good for wood. Now, going back to safety here. I'm at the most vulnerable point. I'm going to be an octagonal piece of wood with corners. It's on the chuck, but is it 100% secure? So I'm going to bring up the tailstock. You know, I could say, oh, I'll just chance it. It's just not worth it. So right at this stage, to be 100% sure that everybody's safe, including people in the audience, I'm just going to throw the tailstock back on and use that as my safety guard. Now, at home I use a long bed lathe. When I say long bed lathe, it's a Vic Mark long bed, so it's about another 18 inches longer. And the nice thing about it is I don't have to either swing the tailstock out the way or I can just push it further back. Because in push cut with bolt turning, whether you're on the inside or the outside, you still have the same problem. In fact, everybody push cuts around the inside of a bowl. You still got the same problem with your handle, is I can't get it past the tailstock. So you might say, oh, I don't have the tailstock with my style of wood turning. You're still got to take it off to do the inside. So at some stage you've either got to swing it out of the way or push it out of the way or drop it. Okay, back to that cut down to the round. So, lining that little bevel up. This bevel, I'm lining that parallel to the outside of the bowl. That's where it is. So I'm going to be touching both in this and here, straight across. So I'm looking down on the tool to make sure it's in line, standing with the flute just open enough to throw the chips. I don't want it too open because then it becomes aggressive and then the chips are also going to hit me in the face. And I just want a little bit of downward handle. As I start to drop the handle, the tool no longer pushes. I'm having to pull it along. So by keeping it flat, I can push it through the cut. So all the energy is coming from my right hand, not my left. All my left is doing is making the tool stable on the tool rest. And there's a little bit of loose bark on it, so let's just take that off because it's going to fly at me. There it is. There's a crack there, but it's just on the corner, so it's not going anywhere. So I'm standing at the end of the cut. And the bigger the cut, the faster I get it down the round, so just cutting down the round the whole cut. And then now we get rid of this guy. Great, so this wood is quite vulnerable. You can see it tore because I wasn't being careful. So we've got to eliminate that. So let's show you how that can be eliminated. So you can see this wood is punky. It was sitting in a log out in the field, and it's getting towards the point where it's starting to decay a little bit. So, but you can still cut it and make that disappear. Level the face again. Straight cut. Corner off. And then move the tool rest into that space. So the cut again. Keeping the tool very flat. If I'm hitting the bed of the lathe, I'm too low. And volume doesn't matter. So I can take large volume, as long as the lathe can go with the power. large volume. Now keep remembering, it's the world's most complex puzzle, if you put it back together, is the last cut. It's all about the speed of the feed. So if your lathe is running very fast, then you can cut a little faster. So I'm running at 1200, which is not super fast for this piece of wood, but there we go, that's the cut there that we're looking for. Let's take a smaller volume, this is on the cut. So I'm only on 2-inch jaws. So that's what I'm looking to do. So then a good volume, keep the handle fairly flat. Now, see what the finish is like before I sharpen the tool. Is it torn or isn't it torn? Oh, it's not torn. Even though the tool's starting to dull, it's not torn. Now you see the torn grain here, where I wasn't being nice to it. And now by closing the flute bore, and I was still taking a pretty hefty chunk, the torn grain's gone. And we know it's punky wood. We can see it's quite punky here. It's got a little bit of rot in it. But it can still be cut clean. I'm going to use this as the jam chip for the other one later. But let me give it one more cut on this. So, at this point, most important thing is the tool sharp. So I'm going to sharpen it again on the CBN. And I could cheat a little bit here. Sometimes I get a little lazy, and I go, I'm just going to sharpen half of the gouge. So I'm only using one half of the gouge. So I'll just sharpen it halfway, and I'll sharpen the other side when I do the inside later. I'm not sure if that's saving money or not, but I'm just being lazy. Okay, so I'm running at about 12:45. There's the end of the cut. Let's see, we're not got too big a volume. Let's just tighten it up again, So, why does the chuck become slightly loose in the time it took to do the outside? Why did it loosen slightly? What happened?
Trying out.
Grain crushed.
Yeah, it compressed, so the grain crushed down. So it doesn't dry out that quick. You're quite humid here, and this wood's not soaking wet. The reason being is all woods can be compressed, especially over a period of about 12 hours. Now, I used to work for a company when I was in my 20s called Hardwood Dimensions Limited. I used to help them import wood for wood turning, and they used to take 3-inch square blocks of hornbeam. In fact, it would be almost identical size to this. Maybe it's a little bit longer. It was hornbeam. They would take a 3-inch block like that, and in the morning it was 1.5 inches thick. Not 1.5 inches thick because they machined it down. They compressed it to half its size overnight. So you can do that with hornbeam, and they used to use it for the weaving industry in Manchester. So Manchester's where the Industrial Revolution started. That's where they used to have in Oldham these huge, huge factories that used to do all the weaving for the whole world. Now there are no weaving plants there whatsoever, but the presses were still there. They used to import the hornbeam from Czechoslovakia, and then they compressed it overnight to half its size, and now it had a super density of 1.4, which is denser than any wood in the world. The heaviest wood in the world is 1.3. So they would then machine it, and it was like this incredible material because you compress overnight. So if they do it slow enough, you can compress overnight. And that's when I realized that I used to think the wood was drying. Oh yeah, wow, it dried pretty quick. I can get a quarter turn. Hell no, it didn't dry. It compressed. And I bet now, we've been talking for what, just a minute or so? It's maple. There's the notch. But a tiny bit more. So it'll get to a point where it'll stop moving, but even that little bit of compression means I've lost a tiny bit of stability. So the more stable the piece is, the better it's going to hold on the lathe. That way I can pick a slightly bigger cut. Now I'm only running on 2-inch jaws. Ideally I'd love to run this on 4 or 5-inch jaws. But so 2 inches, it's not gripping as strong as 4-inch, but it's still okay. So here's the cut. Look how flat my handle is. Pulling down with my fingers. Relatively closed flute. Gliding on the bevel, not riding, gliding, floating, sliding, just no pressure on the bevel. Now the grain's more fungible at the top, so I'm closing and closing the flute more, getting a little bit slower, because here's where there's more pure end grain. So cutting a little bit slower. So even though the wood is rotating faster at the top, I'm still decelerating my cut. And I'll pass it around. Then I need the other bowl blank back because I'm going to hollow that one out. That's easy. Clean up my face because that's not sharp. Thank you much. All I'm going to do here is just clean up my face because it's sharp. I don't want to pass it around sharp. So now just twist it. And I'm going to use this as a... We'll make it too small.
Stuart, when they compressed that wood, did it get wider or did they keep it from getting wider?
They didn't actually support the sides. Great question. No, they didn't need to support the sides. Now, it would get a fraction wider, maybe it's an eighth. But the way they compressed it, it didn't sandwich out like, you know, if you took putty, it would just keep squeezing out. No, it just kept getting smaller. And he did over about 12 to 14 hours. But without heat or anything, and the wood was relatively dry. Now, not all woods will compress quite that clean, but the home beam did. So
Did it stay?
Sorry?
It would stay compressed?
It would stay compressed unless you threw it in a bucket of water. Then it would pop out overnight. Yes.
Good question. Now, when you're using the tool against the tool rest, you notice you're not using or leaning your hand against the tool rest to help control the tool. Doesn't that you lose a little bit of control over there too?
Oh, great question. I love questions. Questions are the best part about demonstrating. It is not a hand rest. It doesn't help me with anything. So I almost virtually never let my hand touch the tool rest. There'll be a couple of occasions, the start of a cut to prevent it from skidding, but once I'm in the cut, no, this guy is not my buddy. This is going to deteriorate almost virtually. All cuts deteriorate. Unless we're a perfectly straight line and I'm gliding my hand like that, I ain't touching it. And even most of the time, most tool rests for straight lines are a really lousy shape and your hand won't fit, so I don't even use it for that. It's just to support the tool to prevent it from dropping. That's all it does. It's not actually a hand. So my dad used to call it a hand rest. I'm like, at which point, Dad, I said this is a hand rest, man. I don't use my hand on it. If my hand touches it, it affects the cut. Think about the gouge. It has to go from here to here. Anything that influences its path, anything gets in front or behind it that isn't being pushed from the rear, leaves a mark on the surface. So if I come round the corner and I leave my hand in front by resting on a tool rest, I will start a bounce. If I use it, I can't use the tool rest as a guide for the shape because it's straight and that's a curve. So it doesn't help me. And even if it was dead straight, I might not even set the tool rest at the same angle, I'm probably still not going to use it. So it's a great question. In fact, in a minute, we did pummel cutting today. And what happens if you touch the tool rest when you cut a pummel?
You screw up the cut.
Yeah, you toss. So broken surfaces are the worst surfaces to do. In fact, we've got time to do that right now before I hollow this out, because it'll only take maybe 3 or 4 minutes to hollow out. So I'm going to take it off, so we want to go which way? That way. Sorry. You know, that's what happens when you do a class where you've got Nova chucks that go left-handed, and then you've got Big Mark chucks in one way that are right-handed in the same class. And you walk around checking people's chucks while you're loosening them, not meaning to. Anyway, so you can see this is silver maple. It's not, you know, it's not a great piece. It's alright, but it's still cut clean. So now, there's always tool marks. We are not looking for perfect cut, but there's no such thing as a perfect cut. It can't be done. And when I say it can't be done, what I mean by that is that, excuse me, that's what sandpaper's for. It's to take a really good cut, or a good cut, or a really good cut, and make it perfect. Because no matter how flawless I think I made the cut, a little bit of chipping there, how flawless I made the cut, there are tool marks. It's a continuous spiral from the bottom to the top, or the top to the bottom, whichever way you go, which is what, you know, the old vinyl records were the same thing. Just is how bad or how deep are those groove marks. So just make sure we've got location. Now, one thing I didn't do here was use a tailstock. Nobody uses a tailstock. So if it's running out of true, that means I should have used a tailstock. So it's running pretty true. But before we do, how about I cut some pummels? Yeah, we'll talk about that. So we got some good questions there. Take this guy off. Just make sure it's balanced so I don't drop it. There it is, yeah. We'll do a quick pummel. So, like I said, there's something unusual about touching the tool rest. And so I believe it influences a lot of people's turning work. So the style of turning I've got, I named it push cut about 25, 30 years ago after working with Mahoney. Otherwise, my style didn't have a name. And so when I worked with Mahoney, we were turning in the same workshop. Like Mahoney, I realized he was left-handed. He was using his left to control the tool as well as his right. He was using both to control the tool. And I said, you pull the gouge around. He says, yeah, I do. I pull it around. I says, I don't pull any tool around. I just push it around. And that's when we realized we had two very distinct styles. And that's when I realized that the Irish grind required the gouge to be pulled round. The reason it couldn't be pushed round is the nose of the gouge in the Irish grind is 60. You can't push 60 degrees. It'll ride right off the surface. But the wing on the Irish grind is 40, because the Irish grind does not have a grind that is even all the way around. And what I mean by that is, if you take a protractor, if you could, and you measured the wing, the middle of the wing, the tip, and the other side of the wing, it's constantly changing angles. There's a big problem with that. Anybody know what that problem is when you use it for anything other than pull cutting? What is the problem when your gouge bevel changes angle?
You're going to have to change the presentation of the tool to the wood.
Correct. Can you do that on certain cuts?
Next to impossible.
Correct. It's impossible. So therefore, it's only good for one thing, pulling around the bowl. If you want to push it, when we push, we have to decide, well, today I'm going to push in at this angle, so I'm going to open the flute more. Oh, I want to push that, I'm going to change it. When you do that, the bevel comes on and off the surface. And so where do you put the handle to match that? But if it's 40 all the way around is what freehand sharpening does, because you're using a platform and not a pivot system, what happens is you're able to adjust. So you notice for the maple, I was a little bit more closed with my flute than I was with the ash. With the ash, I had it slightly more open, but I was still in the bevel. If my bevel was changing angle from the tip to the wing, when I opened and closed the flute to find the magic spot, then my bevel may be on or off the surface. And when your bevel's off the surface, you're not in control of the tool. It's really simple. This pencil, it's a skew chisel. When the bevel's in contact, I can sharpen this pencil really easy one-handed. Beautiful cut, no tone grain, no effort. Watch what happens when I take the bevel off. It doesn't move. I have to push it with my left. Now it's damaging the pencil. You can hear it. It's scraping. That's scraping. That's slicing. The slicing is done one-handed. I don't need two hands to slice. So I don't need two hands to turn wood. What my left hand is doing, it isn't controlling the tool, it's just stabilizing it. And the reason it's stabilizing it, all gouge cuts require the handle to be at the very minimum flat, but usually down, which means the tool is light. So I'm making it heavy at the front. And that's what stabilizes the tool, is making it heavy at the front. And in this case, I'm definitely going to have to change the pulley speed, because I'm on low speed, which won't work for pummels, especially on a small block of wood. And let's just show you the difference. Okay, so okay, so here's a tool rest. The cameraman hopefully can pick up this up. I'm going to show you what a pummel looks like. I'll do a bunch on this. I'm going to use a different gouge. Where's those other gouges? Did they come back?
They're over here on the side.
Oh, great, thank you. I'm just going to use this one gouge. This one. Thank you for that. I'm running pretty quick, 22, 2300 on this. So a pommel is can't touch the tool rest. Watch how clean I can cut it without touching the tool rest. I can cut it and it doesn't need sanding. So this is a pommel we would do in spindle turning. We'll stop there under the shoulder. So this pommel right off the tool is super, super clean. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to let my hand touch the tool rest while I do the pommel. And watch what happens to the pommel. So I'm just going to, as I start the cut, I'm just going to let it nudge the tool rest. And it interfered with its path. So anything that interferes with the path, watch it cutting clean. Really good. Now as I'm going to go down, I'm going to put my finger in front of the cut. It can't do the cut. I'm locking it flat. So it's making vibration, bouncing. But if I put my finger just on top, so it's not the tool rest is resting the tool on it, but it's not guiding the tool. The 100% guide of the tool is that little bevel. That bevel cuts really clean into there. And it doesn't matter which direction you go in, even if you do it left-handed, I'll do it left-handed, which if you did in the class today, direction. It's the bevel that guides the tool. And I'm just telling the bevel where to go. I go into the middle. So it's very rapid. And then I do curves. Do concave. So I got straight in at an angle, straight in at an angle, concave, convexed. And you can see it cuts super, super clean because I'm floating the bevel. So let's just rub the bevel on a couple of cuts and see what happens again. So instead of going round with the bevel floating, you barely hear it on the surface. Just do it, barely on the surface here. I'm floating. I'm just going to press in. The tool is getting into a rugged, and it loses control. But if I float it, so it's barely on the surface, it's in super control. Going the other way. That's what this guy is for. Can't use it on a ball, by the way, folks. It's, yeah, that's a disaster. But it's great at spindle turning. Really good at getting in that corner. That's it. The other way. So I just did a bunch, like, you know, a bunch of different cuts. I'll pass it around. So, wasn't exactly cutting slow either, but you see, they cut real clean of the gouge. All those. So that's floating the bevel, which we'll do on the inside of the bowl. So I need to go back to slow speed. Probably enough horsepower. I'll leave it. So, by the way, on the Vimeo videos, I go into that quite a bit about floating the bevel. There's a couple of videos where I'm showing a cross end grain, where I'm showing you how I'm controlling the tool and not interfering with the path of the tool. So, you know, if my tool needs to, where is it? The tool needs to travel a certain path, then I'm just going with the tool to do that path. If I'm going round a big sphere, I'm letting it travel. I'm not interfering with the front. All I'm doing is traveling, adding mass to the front. That's all I'm doing. Let's throw the bowl on. Now, the 40-40 gouge has limitations. So we're about to see its limitations, which is it does not like the bottom third of any bowl. So it's going to be good for part of it, but not all of it. Thank you. And let's don't forget, just use the tailstock here. It's good. Because what happens here, sometimes when you tighten this up, it'll squeeze it out just a little bit. It can happen, and the tailstock will prevent that. So if you end up with any gap between the jaws and the wood, then you don't have a good location point. The bowl will run out of true, and then I'll get a little bit more deflection when I'm hollowing it out. But I think it's good. Yeah, I can live with that. That's pretty good. Okay. Now, hollowing out. Amazing about how many people work so hard to hollow out a bowl, and I'm like, man, that's not fun. It's so easy to hollow out the bowl. Is don't swing round the bowl. The straighter in you go to get rid of all the bulk, the faster it is. When I race mahoney, we don't ever swing into the bowl. It's too slow. We go in straight, 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 then we swing at the end. If you swing, you're swinging towards end grain. There's a wall of end grain there. Don't swing until you have to. Everything wants to be the straighter in I go, the faster I can get rid of the chips. So here's what happens when you go towards end grain. Listen to this cut. And that's how I see people hollow out the bowl all the time. I'm like, what? You want to make this powder? Watch what I do when I flip the tool 90 degrees and cut side grain only. Which one's easier? And the amount of professionals say, man, they don't want to be turning bowls for them because it's just beating you up. You want to go in straight. Straighter in. Look how big the chips are. Big, nice, flat, easy chips, easy to clean up, no powder. You don't want this powdery stuff. So, the problem is, I can't go in straight right now, can I? Because it's solid wall. So I make a V cut. V, V. The straighter in I can get my V, the better. I'm making a hole down the middle. Notice I'm not swinging at the end, I'm just going in straight. This gouge does not like to go around the corner. It loves end grain. When I go around the corner, it's facing into end grain instead of slicing and peeling it. So, okay, so let's show you how this works. So, the gouge wants to skid on entry. So just prevent it, put your thumb there, lots of leverage, push in. And just a tiny amount of swing, just a tiny amount, just to match the outside swing. Stop the chips flying too far. So notice I'm leaving the grooves at the bottom. I don't know if the camera picks them up, see them? Then they help me later to do the next one. So then it won't skid. But watch how it skids here, see skidding? It skids on the flat, but it can't skid on groove, it sits in there. So we'll get to those later. So thumb on the to rest, prevent it skid, push in flat, open the groove just enough to throw the skid. And I'm only swinging the same to match the outside curve, no more. I'm not swinging directly straight in the middle. Look what happens when I swing into the middle. So it's kicking, and I'm fighting it the whole time. That is not the territory of this gouge. That's the territory of this gouge. Bottom bowl gouge. This gouge loves this area here. This is where it loves. Loves side grain. Loves side grain. This one does not like the side grain. When we do this cut, it's messing it up. It looks easy, but when you stop the lathe, it's always torn. This gouge loves going across the end grain. Now, I'm going to get rid of a little bit of here, so I'm going to swing a little bit. Just the minimum swing. Just not trying so you guys don't have to fight it too much later. Oops. Remember, it's on the high-speed lathe. That's as far as this gouge can go. It can only do 2/3 in. It doesn't like this area here, not for a finish cut. You see the mess it makes? It makes a mess. It loves going across this stuff. It hates going across the side grain. That's when we'll change over to this gouge. So what we need to do now is finish this area here. So how's the ash doing? We're starting to crack on me. I thought it might. So even in here it's a little bit dry. So a little bit of a crack here because the ash is very vulnerable. Colorado ash. So I'm going to do a quick turn the little outside down a bit because there's a crack on it because I don't want it to blow up on me. So let's sharpen it. And what I'll do, I'm just going to cut up that outside. You'll see why in a second because it's starting to check. I forgot that this stuff is pretty vulnerable to like dry air conditioning in here or whatever you do here. So I'm going to throw a bit of tape on it so it's tape so it doesn't check on it. I forgot about that. You know, we turned it, what, half an hour ago? So it's starting to check. So I do a quick cheat. Let's go to a push cut this way. So I'm going to do a little cheat here. I'm going to push left-handed up a piece, it will fit. Get rid of that checking. Just because we got some checking, I'm going to put the tape on it to stop it from drying out. Yeah, it's gone. Otherwise, when I make it thin in a minute, it's going to blow up on me. I don't want it to blow up. So I'm going to do the tape round. It's just going to stop it from drying out right on the end grain, where the ash is quite vulnerable. That's all. And I put the tape on backwards, so it doesn't unwind. Okay, so if I want to make this thin, I can still do it in one cut. But I don't do it in one cut where I go thinner, thinner, thinner. I'm going to stage it. So what I do here, let's get this bit down to Or you can keep them.
I sit over here.
Nah, he's got a great view, but there's a price to pay for it. But you've been getting covered in chips all day. See what it's like when I walk around the lathe teaching you guys? You guys spray me with chips all day and I have to put up with it. Okay, it's the same thing. All right, so here we go. Let's just clean that up a little bit. So, to make this thin, notice this, can you see the steps? Thinner, a little thicker, a little thicker. I'm just going to go pick my thickness at say an 8, and I'm just going to power through the next 2 steps. So what's happening here, she hasn't started warping yet, she's still got structural strength. So, got that one. Paper towel. Not my tea bags. I need my tea bags for later. Paper towel. Sure, good. Now, a couple of things. You get rid of the heel. I'm just shortening the heel here. I'm not using, not sharpening it out. The heel is going to rock it and roll and quite a bit. And I'll put the final edge on that one on the CBN. So, most important cut of the whole ball is right now. The reason it's the most important cut of the whole ball is because it's the inside of the ball, which is hardest part of the whole ball to stand. Remember I told you just sharpen half the gouge? So I have to sharpen the other half. That's my paper towel. And let's fire that up. Okay. So, correct height. Coming in, paper towel. Now, paper towel is going to stop the wood from doing what? Vibration?
Pushing away.
Burning your fingers. So vibration is the result of the vibration. So that what happens when I try to cut, the wood will try and escape. It's going to go, oh, well, hell, I don't want to be here. So it flexes. Once it gets thin enough, it goes, I'm getting out of the way. Then it bounces back, which creates a vibration because it doesn't want to be cut. So what I do is I stop it from escaping. Now, I used to use my finger, but I wore it down. So just paper towel. Now, I don't need it for the whole way around. And I don't need this long a handle. Not that deep before. Okay. So paper towel. Just stop it from escaping. Now, don't be in a hurry. Hurry, you'll make extra vibration. Now power through stage 2. Power through stage 2. Close the flute, close the flute, close the flute. Because right there, I'm going towards end grain. And you see the chip went to more powdery because I was no longer peeling pure side grain. And that gives me a really nice finish in there in one pass. So I'm still able to do pretty thin, and I'll make it thinner from the outside. So now everything changes. This gouge can't go any further because if I keep swinging, I'll hit the rim of the bowl. Just change it out to what's called a bottom bowl gouge. Mahoney calls it the bottom feeder. It's called a bottom bowl gouge. He just doesn't know any better. You can call the bottom bowl gouge for 25 years, but you had to have a different name for it, so you could call it a different tool. It's the exact same grind. You know where you learned it from. That's right, me and Mahoney compete all the time. It's funny how when we race, you know, Mahoney says he'd love to push cut, but there's a reason he doesn't push cut around the outside of the bowl. Anybody know why he doesn't push cut around the outside of the bowl? It's really simple. He's left-handed. He doesn't like it. He doesn't like working left-handed. But on the inside of the bowl, he doesn't have a choice. He has to turn right-handed. But on the outside of the bowl, he's got a choice to turn left-handed, so he does. But you can't turn the inside of a bowl left-handed. It's not humanly possible. There's nowhere for you to stand, not unless you turn on the other side of the lathe. So he's forced to be right-handed. But on the outside, he doesn't like it. So that's why he turns left-handed. So I had normally when I teach a class, I don't think I asked it this morning, I used to ask, is anybody left-handed in the class? And then somebody says, yes. I said, it's tough. You're going to be turning right-handed. Because the lathe is set up for right-handed people. So I teach in a class in Richmond, I can't remember where it was. And we're doing spindle turning like we did this morning, all spindle turning with a bowl gouge. And second day, this guy's turning the bowls all left-handed. And I said, whoa, why are you turning left-handed? He said, you're right-handed. He says, oh, I'm right-handed. He says, I'm not turning left-handed. He says, oh, hell yeah, you are. He says, if that gouge is in the left hand, that's left-handed. He says, hell no, that's how Mahoney turns. I says, but Mahoney's left-handed. And he goes, what? He says, You mean I've been watching Mahoney's video for 2 years, and I didn't know he was left-handed? Mahoney doesn't mention in his video he's turning left-handed. So there's thousands of people out there that turn left-handed not realizing it's left-handed. Okay, so remember this chip? That's what we want. This gouge can no longer make that chip because it's going into the end grain. Because the wings are so far back, the wings that are parallel there, in this position, are hitting solid end grain, and it makes a powder. But because I've taken the wings forwards and taken the angle to 60 degrees, I go back to the big peeling chip, like this. This back, because it interacts differently. That's where the bottom roll gouge works. It's really good across the bottom of the roll. Now, what this gouge can't do, it cannot cut the sidewall, and it can't cut the bottom. So the secret to this gouge, and the reason it's very hard to learn, is everybody stands right here. And if you stand right there, it won't work. Because watch what happens. If I stand right up against the lathe, I'll come around the corner, hit my body, and I'll push it with my left. Because I can't swing the handle any further, I'm forced to get it to move forwards by pushing it. If I stand back here, I can swing it to the middle. So grip it there initially, then release. So look where the handle comes from. It's way outside of there. So I've got to stay out the path of that handle. Now, this gouge doesn't like the sidewall, but I have to use the sidewall a little bit to pick up the next stuff. Don't make the noise. Whoa. I think we've got one more cut. Where we're at. Then I'm going to sharpen this guy up because I haven't sharpened it up since I was in Hawaii, which is a month ago. So it's been sitting in my bag. Okay, we're not bad. So a little touch up. Now to sharpen it up, I'll demonstrate on this one, but I'll do it on that one. I grind it at 40 degrees. That's the relief angle. So I grind the Babble at 40. I normally use an angle gauge set at 60, but to be lazy, if I don't want to move the platform, because I only need it for a few seconds, I put my finger there and I roll it round. So I'm going to do that on the CVN, because that wheel's too bouncy. So this on the CVN, I'm just going to put my finger underneath, and that's about 60, give or take a few degrees. Got it? That's it. Okay, so the other thing about this tool, why it's hard to learn, and if you watch the video I've got on Vimeo about this tool, is you mustn't grip it like this or like this. You're gripping it. If I grip it to start the cut like that, then you release it. I'm only holding it down in front of the tool, not behind. That way I'm not pushing it. I don't want to push it. Let it slide. So just there, no thumb behind, no grip. Just let it slide. So I'm sliding on my original cut. Light on the pressure. There's the cut. Don't let it amplify the noise. A nice, slow, controlled finish cut. Stay above center. Above center. Above center. Okay, so you heard that little bit of vibration. Everybody know where that came from? Where's that vibration from?
Aren't you?
No, manufacturer error. Made the flute too long on this tool and it vibrates just a little bit. So Ashley Harwood, my apprentice, she had hers made with the flute an inch shorter and it doesn't vibrate. Doug Thompson made the flute a little bit longer, thinking he's giving you a better bargain. But when this tool gets down to that short, I'm not using it. It's already too short for a bottom bowl gouge, it won't reach. But he milled the flute just that extra inch. And it's quite thin, the steel here, because the bottom bowl gouge has got quite a bit of material removed from it. So it's got a little bit of deflection. So you're just listening, and you might say, oh, angle the tool rest in. It doesn't help. Look where I end up. I still end up on the same spot of the tool rest. When I finish the cut, I get the same vibration. So a curved tool rest might help, but not always, because it's usually not the right curvature. And so let's pick up the cut one more time. So I think I'm going to go with my 40-40, just a little further around. See if we can get just pick up the cut. How are we for time, by the way? What time is it? 8:25. 8:25? Okay, plenty of time. Okay. So here, if I want to polish, now it's going to hear it's warped a little bit. I'm going to very lightly float it into the cut. There it is. No more noise than I like. That's the max I can get that gouge around. And kick on this one again. So stay above center, finish on center. The reason I'm saying above center is I get a better peel. If I'm directly on center, the tool's kind of flat, and I'm not got the chips coming down or the wood coming down to the cutting edge. So I want to be coming up a little bit and the wood coming down to it, and that gives me a smoother finish. Oh, I'm happy with that, yeah. That's not bad. Wood a little bit more. One more. I'm not going to blow it up, don't worry. I've got plenty of wood. I just want a bit better curvature across the bottom. That's all. Just more pleasant curvature. A little bit more. I've got plenty of wood there, so I haven't blown a bowl up for at least 10 years, and the last bowl I blew up is because of Mahoney. Some of you don't know Mike Mahoney, you know, we compete all the time and we make fun of each other. But I was doing a bowl like this in Utah, and I was looking for a jam chuck. You know, I'm making this with a jam chuck. But I didn't have a jam chuck about, and I'm sharing a room with Mahoney, so he has this quilted maple blank for his planet demo for next. So I'm like, what am I doing? So I got his quilted maple blank on and I'm making it into a jam chuck. And Mahoney walks in and he is like blown away because it's like a $200 piece of wood. He said, Stu, whatever you do, man, don't make that blank any smaller. So it was almost fitting on my jam chuck because I squeezed it a bit tight and it cracked my bowl. And I'm like, oh. So I taped it up, thinking it'll survive. And I switched to Lathe, and before I got my next cut in, it blew up because I'd already put a crack in it. And half of that bowl is still sitting in the rafters 30 feet in the air. Nobody can get to it. So, anyway, I blame Mahoney. If he'd let me just take one more cut of this damn piece of quilted maple, I wouldn't have cracked the bowl blank trying to squeeze it on too tight. Okay, so let's finish it.
He's probably still razzes you about blowing up his bowl or blowing up a bowl.
Blowing up the bowl, well, he always points it out on the rafters, you know.
Yeah.
Stuart Batty's bowl's still up there, you know.
It's kind of hard to get up there and sign it though, right?
Let's not go there. If I could get it back down, I would. But there's no way of climbing up there. Because it's, the next 20 years, it's going to keep Stuart Batty's ball still up there. Yeah. It's a bit like when you, if you blow up a ball in the demo, take all the bits away. Because what'll happen is, it'll turn up the next time you turn up. And somebody said, can you sign it now? And I'm like, hell no. Oh, actually, I need to leave this on there.
So you can always ask, how do I know it's mine?
Well, because they got it on camera, usually.
Yeah, but the thing is, you know,
Denial.
cameras can lie.
Well, it's called, what do they call it? Plausible deniability.
Yeah.
Yep.
So this is going to be my jam chuck. And so it's actually an easy fit on this guy because it's already got a shape to it. So I'll just use the shape as a guide to where my actual diameter is. So I remember turning a bowl like this many years ago where I turned the outside, and it was what I call a public demonstration. It's in a trade show. So I was in London, Alexandra Palace, and my dad's demonstrating there as well. And I turned the outside of the bowl, I put my tenon on like this, and I'm about to turn the inside. So I passed the bowl around while I change up my jaws and get the chuck ready. And then the bowl's like half turned, and I said, all right folks, can I get my bowl blank back? And I'm like, the bowl blank never comes back. And I'm like, what? Who would steal a half-turn bowl? At least wait until I finished it. Anyway, go to visit my dad about 3 months later, and there's my damn bowl sitting underneath his bench. He says, what? That's my bowl, Dad. He says, yeah, wasn't it funny? I said, what do you mean it was funny? He says, yeah, I thought, I'd walk off with it. I was like, Dad, thanks. I mean, that was embarrassing. I honestly thought somebody'd stolen it, but no. Well, they did. It was just my dad.
At least you got it back, right?
Yeah. All cracked up, yeah. Because it wasn't a dry bowl. So what I've done here, I've marked it with a pencil line. That's roughly where the size is. And what I'm going to do here is cut a taper on it. Not a big taper, just so I can get it started, and then I've got to get the final size with a scraper, not with a gouge. So right now, cut it. So I think that's about the right size, but let's make a taper on it. Just going to say the size. Start a little bit lower, a little bit above, taper it. Let's see where it fits on the taper.
You're
Who's actually
good.
do that for a living? I don't know. You're good.
You are good.
All right, I guess I've done it before. I love it when my dad used to see that. Unfortunately, my dad's no longer with us. But I remember doing this. I was making spherical boxes. There was this gallery in Oxford in England. However many spherical boxes, if I sell them for £20 each, they would buy them. You know, and it's a Woodturners, times would get hard sometimes. And I'm like, man, I'll make them another 20 boxes. I hate making them for £20 each because the wood was £5. So I'm only making £15, which is $25 for a perfect spherical box with a stand. But anyway, so I'm production turning them in my dad's workshop. So I'm making a lot of these boxes. And my dad used to do, I used to call it like the buzzard move. He's like a buzzard, he's hovering above me while I'm working. I'm like, what are you doing, Dad, man? He's like, I'm just watching. And so I'm going for the fit on my box. And it used to take 3 cuts to do it. Cut in, which was tapered, and feel where the fit fits on the taper. Straighten out the taper, get it closer, straighten it out completely, get the fit. So he comes in, and he sees it's my first cut, and he makes me jump. And I go way too wide, and I look at him kind of cross. I'm like, what do you want, Dad? And it fits perfectly. And he goes, whoa, lad, that was a good cut. I says, what was a good cut? He says, that, you got it in 1. I says, give me a break, Dad, I get it in 1 every time. Okay, it's not a perfect fit. I made it look better than it was. So I'm going to tighten it a little bit. So what I'm going to do to tighten it up, because it would fail. Does anybody know why that would fail as a grip? No. It's tapered. It's fitting right at the end of the taper, so it would fail. Why would it fail? Because
Don't need contact.
You're not using a vacuum, just pressing.
getting there, but not yet. I'm going to show you why it failed. It's real simple. You go, oh my goodness, now I know why you mustn't do what I'm about to do. So you've got to fix it. So what I got lucky, is this is my shoulder, and I've got the fit on my bowl. So this is the bowl in a different colour. That's a jam chuck there, of course. No, there's a jam chuck. I got the fit exactly right there. Right there. But that is a disaster about to happen. If I dare to turn it, I'll blow it up. So let's say it's super tight, it's perfect. It wasn't quite perfect, but it's perfect. But it's still going to fail. Why is it going to fail?
No support.
Lack of foot support further down.
So let me show you what should be correct. It should be parallel and tapered. By being parallel for distance that I pushed it up on, the same diameter all the way up till I get to the shoulder, it would have to wobble back that amount to fall off. If it comes a tiny, tiny bit loose, it will immediately release right now. So right now, though, I've got the perfect fit. If it just wobbles a thousandth of an inch, it's going to go, oh, I'm off the tenon, gone. By sliding it on a parallel section, it has to slide back that far before it releases. So I could have something where I'm cutting the tenon here, it wobbles a bit, it's not going to fall off immediately, I get a second chance of pushing it back on. And then I'm also going to do a backup. I'm going to take that to the same diameter, put tape over the joint, and then it can't creep. So it's a double backup. And why do I want to be so fussy about jam chucking? This is the end of the bowl, folks. You've already sanded the inside. It's your finished bowl. It's worth now whatever, $100, $200, $300, depending on where you're selling it. If you blow it up now, you've wasted a lot of effort. You can't blow it up in the early stage. You always blow it up at the end. So don't blow it up at this stage. So taking a square chisel, all I'm going to do is cut sideways at the same diameter. So just going to go sideways and cut a longer tenon like this. Fit it onto that. So it's just parallel, and then, is that too tight? What does wood do if I wait? Stretches. Good joke.
Compress.
Stretched. If I pushed that all the way in one go, you'd be looking at 2 halves of bubble. It would just pop it. Just like when you tighten the chuck, 20 seconds later you can tighten it again. The wood will stretch 1 or 2 thou. And that was the difference. Now it's rock solid. I can even get it off. I'll have to force it off later. So all I did was, I've done it before, I've been impatient, I've gone, oh, I've got the good fit, and I push it all the way up tight, and it cracks. But just by waiting just a handful of seconds, 15, 20 seconds, the bowl could take the extra pressure. It's just being nice to it. See, it didn't crack. And ash is really vulnerable to cracking. You know that. It was cracking while I was turning it. Now, let's do the safeguard. So double safeguard. Jam chucks, just, we don't care about the jam chuck, so turn it down to the same diameter. Put the tape on, backwards, once round. Now, we all know masking tape's got no strength, does it? It's got no real strength, but what it's really good at is stopping the bowl from creeping. So by putting it on, it can't creep. So now I can turn the bowl there, and it can't creep because the tape is strong in this direction, not if you tear it, and then even if it did creep, it would have to creep a 1/4 inch back before it fall off, so I've got a double redundant safety. I made a double redundant safety because that way, if this was a $150, $200 piece of wood, which I've turned, piece of wood that valuable before, and then I blow it up, and then it's a piece that I might have sold for $500, $600, then I just lost $600 because I was too lazy to be sensible about the tenon, which only took an extra 30 seconds, and sensible about the tape, which cost 20 cents for the tape, and it cost an extra 30 seconds to make it fit. Now there's no way that's coming off, no matter how stupid I am. Now, the only downside is, where's the inside? I don't know either. We're just going to find out right now. So, we'll give it a try. So, now, here's something magical about jam chucking. What is the most magical thing about jam chucking? Something really, really magical about jam chucking. What's that, sorry?
That'll just finish the base completely now.
It does, but there's something even more magical. So vacuum chucking, cold jaws, all of that let you finish the base, but there's something incredibly magical about a genuine wooden jam chucking. Everybody know what it is. The bowl does not know it's hollow anymore. So there's no deflection. So I don't make thin bowls from the inside out. I make thin bowls from the outside in. So if I want to make a thin bowl, and it's an expensive piece of wood, and I do not want to blow it up, so let's say I'm making a really tall, bowl like this, out of Coca-Cola, and it's a $150 piece of wood, I'm going to jam chuck it. And whatever thickness the inside is, which is finished and sanded at this stage, I then cut off, I always make sure it's even, so I would calibrate it, then I would cut it like that. That's how I make it thin. Then I can't blow it up. As long as I don't take off the wrong amount, I can't blow it up. Because if I'm taking it from the outside, from the inside out, it's starting to deflect, it's starting to warp, it's starting to get noisy, it's starting to also, now it doesn't know, and I can turn the whole thing from start to finish, all the way around in one more pass if I want to make it even thinner. So, let's get the bottom. I have no idea what that means, but I see my Odin do it. I got my handle too hot.
Like something on watermelon, see what's right in the
Sounds okay. But I think we'd fold one more cup. So there's a little cheat. So let me show you another cheat here, right? Okay, let's say I need to get it off, but I can't, can I? Can I get it off? Oh, I can. I got lucky. That's the nice thing about jam chucking. It's not bad. So we can afford maybe one more cut. Maybe. Is, look what happens. Oh, look, it's running through again. So if you put that in a vacuum chuck, cold jaws, anything else, it won't be running through. So now you're cutting again. So that's the nice thing about vacuum chucking. It doesn't know it's hollow, it doesn't know it's thin, and it cuts, allows me to cut it one more time. So this is one nice light cut all the way around. So it's an important cut, so let's sharpen up the gouge. On CVN, there's a whole 3 pennies worth of gouge, maybe 5 pennies on this gouge. Okay. And let's shorten the level. Yep. Off we go again. So, doesn't matter how thin. So if obviously, you don't want to go ridiculously thin, but if you wanted to go thinner, I'm not working blindly here. I know my thickness we can see with the light, so as long as I don't take too much off, I can go take the same amount off all the way around again. It has to be an equal amount. And then hollow at the bottom. That's a little bit long. Just going to shorten it a little bit. And so I don't have to be super nice to it, though, because it's really rigid. We've got a good support. Now here do an entry cut so watch it doesn't skip. And then hollow that out. Center. Oh, what's that thing? Right out. One more cut there. Now, if you want to take out tool marks, that's where negative rake scraping comes in, so we'll just show you a little bit of that. So I've got a skew chisel here, with burr on it, and let's put a little handle on it. So negative rake scraping, as I call it, because I'm the one that named it 25 years ago, is a double angle chisel with the burr. If it has no burr, it's just a dull skew. And it's going to be a dull skew in 20 seconds anyway. But what it's able to do is this magical blend out the toolbox better than, like this little flen mark here with my gouge. I can just blend it out there in that little low spot, just like that. When the burr is gone, this is no longer a negative rake scraper, it's just a dull chisel on its side. And so it's almost dull already, so let's put a burr on. Use a coarser wheel, it's going to guess it. Fresh burr.
Stuart, do you ever shear scrape with that?
No. Shear scraping is negative rake scraping. And let me explain why that is. You say, well, there are two different techniques. They're not. So why do people use shear scraping? There's one main reason people use shear scraping, but what is the main reason people use, why do they use shear scraping? Why do you use it over using a conventional scraper? Why would you use shear scraping over a conventional scraper? That's where you take a conventional scraper and you twist it on its side. Why do you do that? Why do you just use a regular scraper?
Less tear out.
Yeah, you're cutting instead of tearing it out.
You're
You're
still
shaving it still.
You're still scraping, but it's less tear out.
To prevent it from grabbing. If that was a regular scraper on its side in an end grain,
Yes.
it will grab. It's not because you're trying to get a nice curly little dusty shaving, you're preventing from grabbing. This is called a negative rake scraper because it's a secondary edge, because it prevents it from grabbing. It's the grabbing we can't cope with. That's what blows up the piece. That's what makes it tear the grain, because it's attracted to the end grain. So it goes, oh, end grain, I'm going to grab some over here, that, and get, the next thing you know, blown up the hole. So it's all to do with preventing the grab. That's what negative rake scraping does, is it prevents the grab. Because it has a secondary angle, it does not interact with the end grain by self-feeding. It's neutral. It doesn't push it away, and it isn't attracted to it. So it's a neutral reaction. So shear scraping is taking a chisel, twisting it so the burr is no longer parallel to its base surface. And what I mean by that, because this burr is on a different plane to the surface I'm resting on, it does not interact with the end grain. That's why I'm able to go directly into end grain with a 40-degree sharp edge and a massive burr. and it doesn't grab it, I lose control. Almost there, tiny mark. See, I've still got to leave the gouge mark, you see? I just want to get rid of that. But I don't know if I've got the bird. The bird doesn't last very long, it's still got there, still got enough. I just don't want to be aggressive with it. So think of negative rake scraping as negative rake abrasion when you're going into end grain. It's a form of abrasion. That's why it gives a really good finish on certain woods. Not all woods, the denser the wood the better. Remember, this is a reasonably dense wood. You know, ash is reasonably dense. I mean, it's not super dense like I'm going directly into end grain, but it's not ripping it off the lathe. One more time. I'm out of bird. That's fine. The bird's last one. So you've got to keep putting it on. See why in a second. And I'll explain it. And then if you send me an email, I'll send you an article on it, on how it works. So this is mainly about bolting, but a little more. There we go. I didn't like it a little more. Look how nice and easy it is. I can shape the bowl, really refine it, take it off just a few fouls, all the way around. So I can just really refine my shape. I just had a little bit of gouge mark. Where's it gone? That's gone. That'll work. Right, here we go. Not too bad. I could have negative rake scrape the inside, so we can see it's reasonably thin. I mean, the water helps carry it. It's about an 8. That's okay. But look at the finish of the negative rake. It didn't tear it. So, but negative rake is a refining tool. So how does negative rake scraping work? We'll draw a close after I've done this, because I know it's late for you guys too. Okay. So I'm going to draw 2 scrapers that have the same end to them. Excusing my skills of drawing. Okay. That's the burr, Korean, which is excess metal gets pushed back. We're all familiar with the burr. Okay, are they the same, giving my drawing skills? Are they the same tip? Are they the same? Okay, and make this into a conventional scraper. Make this into a negative rake scraper. Are they the same tool? Not anymore. They're the same right here. So, this burr is on this surface here, which is parallel to this surface. That's you to a rest. That's you to a rest. What are those 2 surfaces? Parallel. When that interacts with this surface, because it's exactly parallel, it is attracted to the surface. Those 2 arrows, not parallel. This pulls it in. This pulls it down onto the tool rest. And that stops it from blowing it up. I just took a really sharp chisel with a big furry burr that I put on the coarsest, bounciest wheel in the whole room, and it did nothing but abrade the surface. If I had taken this little chisel here, this one, which is a conventional scraper, this one is just flat on top, and it's half the width, and I put a burr on it, and I put it into that end grain, everybody in this room would have got a piece of that bowl instantaneously. Would have instantaneously gone, ooh, burr, parallel surface, smash, got right through the side, blown into pieces. That's the difference. Negative rake, when you put a secondary angle on. Now, my dad would never have discovered this technique. Could never have discovered it. No apprentice turner in the world would ever have discovered this technique.
Set in their ways.
Set in the ways, because how did my dad sharpen his skew?
Leave a burr.
Correct, he honed it. So if you take a skew with a sharp edge that you've beautifully honed and you put it flat on its side into the wood, what happens to that skew edge within 3 seconds? Dull. So what's it doing to the grain? Mulching it. The burr is like wire wool glued to the front of an edge, and it's wire wooling, abrading the surface, the end grain away. It's making powder, but look at the finish. It's really nice. Right off the tool. It's really good. But when the burr is gone, what is it? A dull skew. Do dull skews work? No. So if my dad ever tried it, it would never have worked. So what did they use on ivory when they turned ivory? Remember, ivory has a specific gravity of 1.8. That is 60% heavy, well, 40% heavier than any wood in the world. they used a skew on its side, but because ivory is not a hollow tube, it's still strands, they're a solid calcified hair. If you use a regular scraper, with or without the burr, even if you hold the burr off, it will instantaneously shatter ivory. So the ivory turners discovered that if you put a second burr up, second angle on it, like a skew on its side, and took the burr off, it was great. We need a burr because ours is still strands, but they're hollow strands. Because they're hollow, if we don't have a burr and braid them away, they don't work away with a sharp edge. But ivory can be worked with a sharp edge. Plastics can be worked away with just a sharp edge trailing, but not wood. That's why when I saw that Easy Wood Tools have now brought out a negative rake scraper made from carbide with a negative angle, and I'm like, all right guys, you just didn't get it, did you? Without the burr, it's just a piece of crap. You're not abrading, you're rubbing an edge. And even carbide does, and it doesn't work. It's the burr, it's magical. Remember, I had to keep going back to the grinder 3 times. But look at the result I got. I ended up with taking out all my gouge marks, bringing it back to true. I was able to work it super thin, and I didn't blow it up. Even with my gouge, I'd been pushing my luck at that point. It's thin enough. And that's negative rake scraping. So in all the articles I've written for the AW, and the one I'll send you guys if you email me my email, is there's an article in the catalog talking about negative rake scraping. If there is no burr and there is no second angle, it is not negative rake scraping. It's something else. And I wish I'd called it, if I knew better now, 15 years ago, I would have called it negative rake abrasion. It's abrasion. It's a bit like having 36 grit sandpaper that gives you a 220 finish. If you ever use coarse sandpaper, the problem is it's very effective, but then when you go to the next grade, it has to be just a little bit less coarse and a little bit less coarse. So if you start at 36, you've got to go to 48, then you've got to go to 60, you've got to go to 80, 120. You know, you've already used 5 grits. But I'm getting the same amount of material off as a 36 grit sandpaper, but with a 220 finish. Because that's what metal particles, especially with high vanadium content, is. They abrade away the surface really effectively with that little guy without tearing it. But it doesn't work on punky wood. So this piece of maple from before, my jam chuck, that would not negative rake scrape. But the ash wood, honey locust wood, oak does, elm's okay, reasonable, but soft punky woods don't work. And the reason they don't work is that burr, as soon as it touches the surface, it takes off more material than you want, and it blocks the burr. It wraps onto the burr and grips it and stays there. So to get rid of it, you start pushing harder, and you snap it off, and then it grabs a big lump again. So it's not effective on punky wood. The denser the wood, the fibers break really rapidly. It's more brittle, they just snap off. And so it keeps clearing its waste, keep clearing its waste. And we saw in the ash there, it's not a bad finish for just a piece of wet old ash. In Colorado, it grows pretty quick because it's a sunny estate in the Union, Colorado. So if the tree gets irrigation, ash just grows so fast, and that's why it checks it. It's got more moisture in it than it really wants. Ash in the UK doesn't crack as quick because although we got a lot of moisture, we don't have any sunshine, so the trees don't grow quick. Simple as that. But in Colorado, the growing conditions are too ideal if the tree's irrigated. Ash trees and honey locust trees and maple trees, they get, like this one grew pretty slow, so this one was in a garden with no irrigation. See how slow it is? How really close growth rate. So it was a pretty nice piece until it rotted. It rotted because it was left in a field for 6 months in a log. But otherwise this wouldn't have rotted. But if I negative rake scrape this, I'm pretty sure it's going to lift the fiber. So let's have a quick look. So it won't grab, but let's work it. We'll find out. Maybe it's okay with this piece, maybe it's not that rotten. So, look. No, it's no good. Didn't work. See? Too soft. Didn't do that in the ash, did it? Really hacked it up. So you really see it's really coarse. So it likes hard maple, it doesn't like soft maple. It likes ash, it likes honey locust, it likes Osage orange, the really dense woods. It likes cherry. But as soon as you get below that, it doesn't like poplar, it doesn't like cottonwood, it doesn't like soft maple. So it works on the denser the wood. Remember, it's an ivory technique originally. So the denser the material, the better it gets. Simple as that. And I could have used negative rake scraping on the inside. I didn't because we're a little bit limited on time. This is my negative rake scraper for the inside. Look how big it is. And this isn't the biggest one we do. We do a 3-inch one. Could you imagine putting a 3-inch scraper inside a bowl? Your heart would stop, wouldn't it? You'd be like, I wouldn't dare do it. This one's 2-inch, and it doesn't grab. So I use this. I just didn't get a chance to use it tonight, but look how wide this is. It's a big negative rake scraper with a super sharp edge. It's 40 degrees. Actually, I think it's 50. Anyway, it's pretty big. Let's get the tape off it. can see, it would be terrifying inside a bowl, but not because it's negative rake. If this was a conventional scraper, it would instantaneously blow up the bowl. But that's the one I use on the inside. And it doesn't matter if the whole surface is touching it once, it just sits there. It's neutral. So negative rake comes from negative rake on crosscut saws. So if you take a rip saw and you put it on a chop saw blade, if you take a ripping blade from a table saw and you put it on a chop saw blade on a chop saw machine, what happens? It grabs, doesn't it? It would just grab, and you'd never be able to get it to work. It would just keep stalling because it self-feeds. So what negative rake does, the reason I call it negative rake is it doesn't self-feed. Anything that's got a negative angle on it doesn't self-feed, and that's why I give it the name negative rake. But in my rules, my terminology of what I call negative rake, and if you look back in the AW, I wrote an article 18 years ago on it, it says it must have a negative angle and it must have a burr, or it isn't negative rake, it's just a dull chisel on its side. So keep that in mind. It's a great technique, but be careful with it. Besides it dulling the tool pretty quick, there's another downside to negative rake scraping. That's not the worst thing in the world, but you have to be careful with it. Anybody know what it is?
You get less than 90 degrees.
Correct. You get super lazy. You go, oh hell, I will deal with a gouge. It's too hard to learn. You just start negative rake scraping, and then the next thing you know, you're barely using your gouge. So just be careful. Remember, it's just a fine-tuning machine. It's just like using a super coarse sandpaper. You wouldn't half hollow out a bowl and then sand it to finish. You get it really close. You say to your gouge, I could do a little better, but I don't want to chance it with the gouge. I'm just going to skim it in. Just like that. I got it really close. I'm like, it's not quite where I want it. I'm just going to use it for 30 or 40 seconds. That's it. Otherwise, all of a sudden, it'll be the only thing you're using. Okay. It's really good on acrylics. It's really good if you take a piece of wood and you've used the cactus juice. Where any piece of wood has been impregnated, hardened, you put super glue in it, it's super neutral, it doesn't have any effect. Because thin bowls with a gouge, what happens to the wall when you're cutting it? What's it trying to do?
Walk
It's trying to flex away. If you use a conventional scraper, what's it trying to do? Flex into it, and negative rake is in the middle. It doesn't push it away, and it doesn't pull it in. It's just neutral. Alright, so are we out of time? Near enough?
1 minute.
1 minute left or 1 minute over?
1 minute left.
Oh, right, well answer a question then.
I'm just curious, when you're turning bowls, how long would it take you to turn this bowl that you were passing around, just without all the teaching, just in your shop?
If I was just doing that wet, straight from the gouge, and I was racing, because I'm racing next week, so I'll make a bowl that is 14 by 6 in 11 minutes, including the jam chucking. But 11 minutes, yeah. If it's a less horsepower, if it's on a Powermatic, it'll take me 12. Last time we raced on Powermatics, I took this 12. But when we're on 3 horsepower, it'll save me a minute. I can hog out a little faster. But remember, I probably turned about 5,000 or 6,000 bowls. So the main that makes me fast isn't because I'm cutting, it's because I don't make a mistake. A mistake will cost you way loads of time, or you just blow it up. That's where you got to go wrong. So when I'm racing Ashley next week, she'll take about 17 minutes. And the only reason I'm able to beat her is I'm just more aggressive on the inside. And I'm more comfortable thin wool than she is. She doesn't make thin wool bowls than I do. And that's the only difference. So she'll do, on the outside, I'll barely beat her. I'll be 20 seconds ahead of her on the outside. When it comes to the inside, that's when I'm throwing these chips. I'm just going to use more force. That's how, the only way I beat her. Last time I was racing her, and we raced in Las Vegas. And I'm doing the outside, and I'm like, oh man, she's keeping up. So, because she's getting smart, she's raced, this will be the 3rd time she's raced me, so she's getting faster. And I can't get much faster because I'm at my limit. So, maybe she's going to have to cheat this time or something. Pull the plug, give her a bad piece of wood, dull the chisel, because sooner or later she's going to catch up. But no, for fun, so if I was to make a bowl from a square block like that, and it's all ready to go on the chuck. So that's the only advantage we do, we have it ready to go on the chuck. We've already got the jam chuck prepped. So it's about 11 minutes, I would say. Usually about 11 minutes, give or take. But if you want to make it better, it would take me 15 to 20. If I want to make it perfect, as best I could. But, it's never perfect when you're racing. It's, when we race egg cups, me and Mahoney race egg cups. And we used to race Stuart Mortimer, who's a very aggressive turner, spindle turner from England, great turner, but very aggressive. And Richard Raffin, who's just a speed merchant, and we could thrash him. We used to beat them, and the harder they tried, the worse it got for them. So how you race egg cups is you have 2 tool rests, a 2.5-inch square block of wood on a chuck. You've got to hollow it out, take it down the round, shape it, part it off. So me and Mahoney used to love racing them because they would get so upset because we're just the young kids and we'd always beat them. And they'd get so upset they wouldn't go, we don't do it again, we want to do it again, we want to do it again. And it just get more and more embarrassing because now they're getting more aggressive, so they're throwing it off the lathe. And they're getting catches. And we're just the same thing. Great, so how did we always beat them? Anybody know what the secret was?
Because Mahoney's left-handed.
Correct.
I heard that on Pittsburgh. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's like, he doesn't bump me. They're right-handed, they're fighting for the same space to get the block of wood. So you're in each other's path. And so Mahoney's left-handed, he just does this thing where he's left-handed, he hollows out, I take it down to the round, and as he's hollowing out and taking down the round, I do a quick scallop to shape the egg cup. He reaches over with the parting tool, it's in his back pocket, leans over, parts off. So how long does it take?
Seconds.
That's a slow one.
Sub 6 seconds. Yeah. So, sub 6. It's ugly. I didn't say it was pretty. It looks like it was made in 6 seconds. But it's fun. Anyway, it's just about, as you guys know, you're not looking to make bowls in 11 minutes. You know, if it takes you an hour, it doesn't matter. The main thing is you want to reduce your sanding time. So, no matter what your technique is, sharpen for your last cut, especially on the inside. You know, things like when you're jam chucking, think about, okay, I've got the perfect fit, but how can I ensure it's not going to come off? Keep the tailstock there longer. Tape it up. Things that I've done these mistakes on, like, I'm good enough, I don't need no tailstock. Oh, I'm good enough, I don't need to tape. They've cost me badly. You know, you've got a $100 piece of wood, or a piece of wood is really precious to you. You blow it up because, oh man, I was just too lazy to use the tape because I thought I was good enough not to. So things like bringing up the tailstock when I'm roughing it down the round, safety things, just those are the things that are important. And practice makes permanent. So whatever you practice becomes your permanent technique. So when you're watching on YouTube, if he's not a recognized, good, famous woodturner, no guarantees teaching you something good on technique. You know, watch Mahoney, watch Glenn Lucas, watch Ashley Harwood, Cindy Drosner, Bonnie Klein. They're the people you want to watch. You know, Michael Hostler. There's world-class famous turners, the ones that you guys invite to demos. Otherwise, there's so much trash on the internet on it. It's just, I know it's free, but it's just teaching you how not to cut. Because, you know, if the guy's got torn grain, or he's fighting it, like I said, there was a guy who was posting, he turned this 24-inch oak bull, but he said right then, that beat the crap out of me. I'm like, well, if it beat the crap out of you, something's wrong with your technique. I'm not getting tired wood turning. I mean, except for standing at the lathe all day today, nobody got tired. We're going to make 6, 7, 8 bowls tomorrow. Nobody's going to be tired from the physical side of it. You're going to be tired because you're standing there and you're repeating it, but you're not going to be tired from the physical. There shouldn't be any physical exertion. If you're pushing with more than 2 to 3 pounds of pressure, something wrong with your technique. If it's beating you up, something wrong with your technique. Anyway, I appreciate it because I know it's really hard to sit there for, whatever, almost 2 hours. So, thanks for being here. Don't forget, email me. I'll send you free info. Vimeo.com/woodturning if you want the free videos as well. All right. Thanks so much. Thank you.